This is, again, chapter 17, verses 1 through 9. After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. Just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, a bright cloud enveloped them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell face down to the ground, terrified. But Jesus came and touched them. "Get up," he said, "don't be afraid." When they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus instructed them, "Don't tell anyone what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." This is the good news or gospel of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Please be seated. Sometimes, if you've ever heard that word gospel, there's a little bit of confusion about it. So if I can just, as we go into the message today, clear it up. Good news of the gospel, the good news message, is basically, in its purest form, Jesus. That's it. Everything that he said you can trust. Everything that he did is true. And included in that is forgiveness and eternal life and so forth. But he is the message. And today I want to talk about, if we can, this story. Now, if you've been around church for a while, if you've studied Jesus' life, you'll realize that this happens towards the end of his life, as he is getting ready to face crucifixion. No one else knows that at the time, just Jesus. But it's kind of a remarkable thing what happens. And I'm always kind of struck by the fact that if you've ever had a religious, a very powerful spiritual experience, it's hard to keep that quiet. And here Jesus is saying, hey, I don't want you to say anything. Keep this under wraps. Can you imagine how powerful that would be to have a spiritual experience? You know what? Forget the spiritual experience for a second. Let's just say you go outside to walk the dog, or the dog has to go outside in the middle of the night, and you just happen to go out and there's a UFO. You going to keep that quiet? Oh man, you're going to be texting everybody. You're on Facebook. You're going to your neighbors, waking everybody. You're telling everybody, because it doesn't happen every once in a while. It never happens ever. Now, spiritually speaking, this is the same thing that happened to Peter. And Jesus is saying, hey, keep it under wraps. For now. There's a reason for that. There is a definite reason for that, and I'm going to get to that in a moment. But as an overall theme for today, the message is how relationships define us. There is nothing more important, more impacting than relationships. Nothing. Relationships give us a sense of our identity. Relationships give us an orientation of how the world is. We learn about the world through relationships. We define ourselves, and we also define the world through relationships. Relationships make or break us. And this is very important to understand, because as Jesus comes up to the top of the mountain, there he is in relationship. Interesting that it doesn't say anything about what they talked about, but that they talked. And you can just go right over that like it doesn't make any difference. But inasmuch as it is a miracle, if you will, or spectacular, that Moses and Elijah were there speaking with Jesus, that they were present, they were talking. Relationship is key, because relationships can make you sore, or they can destroy you. And it's no coincidence that before the coming of the Messiah, the prophet Micah says that God will turn the hearts of the children to their parents, and parents to their children, because those are the most intimate and impacting relationships. And they set the direction of our lives and will influence us our entire lives, for good or not. Most of all, and the most influential, is our relationship with God. Relationships do give us a sense of who we are in the world. This last week was my friend Richard Spearman's birthday. It actually is on the 29th of February, which, if you're familiar with that, that's the leap year, right? So not too long ago, he turned 11 or 50, or would that be right? 50? Something like that. But he is now somewhere around the age of 58. And I haven't talked to him in a while, so I had wanted to call him on his birthday, and we talked. And as we're talking and sharing with each other, he asked how I was doing. I said, okay. I said, we've kind of experienced some loss here at the church. And even in my own family, we've experienced some loss with kind of the unexpected death of my uncle, and that my aunt is struggling with that. And I said, how are you doing? He said, not doing too good. Since Mama's been gone, it's been real hard. Rich grew up as the only child of a single parent. His mom raised him. His dad was completely out of the picture, except for maybe two brief times. But his mom was his backbone and set the direction of his life spiritually. Didn't do it perfectly, as nobody can. But she was there throughout his entire life, praying, loving unconditionally. And he has no siblings. He's it. She rather is it for his family. And he said, I don't know how to be in the world without her. See, that's what relationships can do. They give you a sense of security because they orientate your life, but when they're taken away or when they change, you don't know how to be. My aunt is going through the same thing. Suddenly, all of her friends that were couple friends are trying the best they can to comfort her, and even sharing what's going on in their life. Yeah, we're going to go in a couple months down to Florida. It just throws her off because she's not going to do that now. Everything changes when a relationship like that changes. And see, relationships can give you an attitude towards the world. If you are in relationships that have the capability of giving you some kind of sense of confidence and value and worth, you are much more capable of going into the world with that sense of confidence, that sense of stability, that sense of security. But if you have been influenced in your life by relationships that have had a toxicity to it, or some kind of degrading nature to it, then you can carry that into the world as well. That's how important and influential relationships are. The reason why I bring this into mind is because Jesus and everything of what he said, everything what he did, came directly out of a relationship, not from a book. And he was able to, and continues to be able to, be more than capable of, for anyone that so desires, reestablishing the perfect relationship with God. And see, when he goes up on the mountain, you see evidence of Moses. Moses was known for a lot of different things, but the most powerful thing was that he could go into God's presence. He's the only one. And when he would go into God's presence, he would physically be changed. You know, you can do that with relationships. Have you noticed that? If somebody that you really love, you're looking forward to seeing them, man, you can carry that energy with you for a whole week. On the converse side of that, if you're not looking forward to hanging with somebody, you can dread that your whole week. And you feel that Feel that physically. That's the power of relationships. And as we're looking at what has taken place or what took place with regards to the transfiguration, one thing that is so powerful about it, as I mentioned earlier, is that he tells Peter, don't say anything. Anybody have any idea why he would say that? You have an idea? That's good. That's good. Strap that kid with a mic. He doesn't need one. That's true. Yeah, it's good. The reason why he would say that, I believe, is because for relationships to work, they have to first of all be established correctly with God. Meaning that if a relationship with your Creator isn't accurate, it'll throw everything off. Have you ever had a relationship that had a lot of conflict in it only because you just weren't able to communicate? And the more you tried to communicate, the worse it got. And so the more frustrated you got in trying to communicate, you just decided that on your own, you're going to force your communication on the other person. You just sit down and listen to me. Is kind of the energy that can happen. Well, a right relationship with God is key to every other relationship. Mainly because if you don't and cannot trust in the Creator of the universe, it will bring you and move you to a mindset of despair. Now, before I get there, before I talk about that more, I want to talk about this thing about why Jesus told Peter to be quiet. It primarily has to do with having a genuine relationship. And what I mean by that is this. Imagine that you've never, ever met me before. But we were going to meet. But you had noticed that I had put out a number of books and had gone on different talking circuits and promoted them and a bunch of different spiritual conventions and stuff like that, and had acquired a vast ministry with quite a bit of financial wealth and so forth. You knew that about me before meeting me. When you first met me, would that in any way shape how you thought of me? And it wouldn't be genuine. You see where I'm going with that? You can't have a preconceived notion about somebody and have that relationship be genuine. I don't know if you, I used to watch on occasion the Dave Chappelle show. I think he's one of the funniest comedians out there. But he quit his show. He just walked away from it, and at the height of its popularity, and they had an interview with him behind the Screen Actors Guild interview, and they asked him, why did you walk away? This next year, Comedy Central was going to give you millions of dollars per episode, and you just walked away from it. Why did you do that? And he said, because I want my friendships to be real. And when you get to a certain amount of money, they're no longer real. All people see is the money. And he said it's like that cartoon of two guys that get stranded on an island, and after a while the one guy just looks at the other guy and all he sees is a roasted chicken. It's like, that's all he sees because he can't see anything else. Money can do that. Fame can do that. Prestige can do that. Any of those attributes that we put on other people can taint and take the possibility of that relationship being genuine and destroy it. And so Jesus told Peter to be quiet so that that reputation did not precede him and he could have a genuine relationship with people based on who he was, not on his reputation. Now this is very key because, like I said, relationships are everything. And Jesus the vast amount of his teaching teaches us how to be in right relationship with God. See, most of us don't have vast amount of money to be able to influence. I've never had a money situation where it influenced people. I've just had to get by my whole life on my good looks. Yeah, don't you hate when that happens, Mike? Just hate. Thank God. But see, even that becomes a problem. Because if people only relate to you by your looks, what happens when those go? You don't have a genuine relationship. You see? So even appearance is a problem many times. That's why in the scriptures it says that Jesus was not a good-looking man. Did you know that? Yeah, in the scriptures it said the King James Version says he had no comeliness to him, meaning his appearance was not such that we would take notice of him. Because you don't want to have friends, you don't want to have somebody be your friend only because of what you have. And see, this is all about right relationships. Because all throughout history, and this is the bigger picture, God desires to dwell with us in all of his glory. Let me go back a little bit and go back to Genesis. In the beginning, when God created everything, he finally comes, and after the entire world has been created with the seas and the creatures and the birds and the wild animals and everything that's beautiful about creation, he then says, let us, relationship, let us create human beings in our image. And our image, to be able to have relationships. And let them have dominion, meaning to be responsible for everything. Let them be responsible for everything. And in so doing, my very presence will take on a face and an image in the physical. We are images of God, meant to rule with God forever. How is it that we have gotten so off track? How is it that on a regular basis you can read the news and discover the latest atrocities of how we continue to kill and maim and rape? We buy each other and sell each other and abuse each other. Is it any wonder that shortly after creation, God was so grieved by what we do to each other and have given ourselves over in order of consuming each other? Is I got to start over. I got to start over. And so we get the story of Noah, which, by the way, is coming out on the movie theaters shortly. But I don't think it's going to be as accurate as what they sometimes depict it to be. And so after Noah, let me start over. A people destined to reign with me forever throughout all of eternity, whose very nature is such that they don't size each other up, that they don't use each other, but it's just natural for them to love. Natural. They don't even have to work at it. And I will dwell among them. I will dwell among my people. God dwells in this world through us. Through us. Through the people he has called. And see, this is a powerful thing, love. Most of the time we have no idea what love is. Because we are so separated from the reality of God, separated from God, and God is love, because we are separated from that, we assume or think or somehow incline that love is an emotional state. I'm all out of love. I'm so lost without you. Anybody know that song? Yep. Please don't date me.
No, that was in the olden days. Was that before they had radio?
Not that old yet. We think it's all about... All right. That hurts, man. That hurts. But we think it's emotion. Now, it includes emotion, but it's not emotion, because emotions can come and go. And have you ever had the experience you're in love with a person one day, and then the next day you are so angry with them? That's emotion. It's not love. Love is greater than emotion. Love is patient. And it's kind. It doesn't have to have its own way. It's not easily influenced. We think that love has to do with, if it's not romantic love and so forth, something to do with not only emotions, but give and take in terms of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And that will include, but that's not all there is to love. Love is a state of being. I'm going to say that again. Love is a state of being. So the more we spend time with God and God's people, both you can't do it individually. Why? Because it's relationally oriented. It's like saying, man, I want to have a big family, but I never want to get married or have kids. Well, how are you going to do it? In my head. Well, works better in some ways. But the thing is, the more we spend time in God's presence, and this is what the story is about. Moses spent time in God's presence. Elijah spent time in God's presence. And if you read these individuals' lives, you will read that they are not some mythical characters. They are real human beings that had to deal with the real issues of what it's like to be a human being called by God. Do you know how depressed Elijah got? He finally got to a place with God. It's like, I'm tired. Just take me. You ever get to that part? Just take me. I've been there recently. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired. Doesn't mean I don't believe in God. What it is it's my nature getting to its limitations and can't going any further. And see, this is where the community comes in. This is where we come in together. When you can't go on. And Moses had the same thing. Moses had to lead 1 million people. And they got so rebellious against where Moses was leading them through God that they just got all crazy. And in the middle of that, God was just going to, you know what, I'm done with them. I'm going to kill them all. I'm just tired of this. And I'm just going to make a nation out of you, Moses. And you know what he said? No, I'm not doing this. You take them out, you take me out. I don't want to live anymore, if that's what you're going to do. Now, you take a look at that, and the way I was raised to God, about God, the way I was raised as I grew up in church, you don't talk back to God like that. And there's wisdom to that. But He is our friend. And He will prefer genuine, authentic relationship as compared to a religiosity that is fake. Are you with me on that? And that's what you want in your relationships. As painful as it might be, it is important for me to say, honey, does this shirt work on me? That's a joke, son. Don't get so deep on me. You got to have that honesty. And see, the thing of it is, in this world, being separated in our relationships the way we are, we just automatically lie as a matter of self-preservation. And sometimes there's wisdom in that in terms of how you phrase things, but the bottom line is, ultimately, underneath it all, I just want to have a genuine, authentic, real relationship. I'd much rather have you tell me how you feel, even though I may not want to hear it, than you pretend that you have an attitude towards me that you don't have. And so God comes into the picture, and you see it with Moses. God now, in his relationship with Abraham, says, Abraham is my friend. Friend. Do you know that as friends, I have a much easier time forgiving you for your faults than I forgive myself? And you probably do the same thing. That's why we need each other as friends, because we are so hard on each other that it takes a friend that can see us and say about our imperfections that Satan uses to beat us up and say, it doesn't matter, you're my friend. See, that's what friendship is. If you want to boil down this whole religious thing, it's God creating a universe of friends. And so, Moses is able to speak with God as a friend does. Not in a religious manner, but in a relational manner. And I have had to do that too. There are times when I get angry with God. Anyone ever have that feeling? And God has taught me, I'd rather have you express your anger in a real way and we work it out. See, that's another thing about human relationships separate from God that's destructive. When we get angry with people, we can actually walk away. That's not how we were created to be. That's why forgiveness is so important. Restoration is so important. Because restoration of friendships, or even close personal relationships, even years after they've been damaged, is still so important. I've known people that have been separated from their parents because of the abuse that they have experienced, that long for some kind of reconciliation that they got days before the death of their parents, and it was invaluable. Just before you leave this world, Mama, tell me you love me, because I was really hurt by what you did when I was a kid. And I've carried it my whole life. I've gotten by. God's healed me from a lot of it, but I still need to have that reconciliation. Do you ever wonder why? I've seen people die over my years of ministry in hospitals or in hospice. And do you know what happens when they get towards the very last stages of whether it's a doctor or whether it's a nurse practitioner, when they get to those very last stages where they realize that they're not going to be able to be coherent much longer, they tell the family, go call the family. Do you know why? Because intuitively, this is your last chance at redemption and expression. This is it. If you've got unresolved issues, they will remain unresolved your entire life. If you've got no issue, but you want to reconnect and not reestablish, but reaffirm that grace, now is the time. That's why it's so important. So when we read about what's happening here, there's so much more than just a simple story about Jesus going up on a mountainside. So much more. It's the establishment that in God, we are destined and we have relationships that never end. Will never end in God. In God, we realize we were created for relationships, we were made for relationships, and our meaning and our purpose and our intention and our viewpoint and our identity and our orientation all comes from relationships. With God, He with us, we with each other. And this is where we find ourselves in right now in this world. Being shaped by God in every single one of our relationships. That's why many different times these things are going on and we don't even know that God's shaping them and forming them. We just think we have an issue. We don't see the bigger picture. The other day, actually it was yesterday, I was coming here to Men in Mission. If you've never been to Men in Mission, you should check them out. It's a men's health organization. And no, they're not. Spiritual health, maybe. But I was coming here. And as I was coming, I wasn't running late for once. And there was a woman that was walking off to work, I believed. She lives right next to the church. She's got 3 used to be young boys. Now they're all becoming teenagers. She's got a little learning disability here and there. Doesn't have the best hygiene. It's the kind of person you don't want to sit next to in church. And I'm not judging us. It's just true as human beings. It's uncomfortable is all. And so I pulled up. Are you going to work? Yeah. You want to ride? Sure. I used to think she was beneath me. It's the pecking order that we are born into. You know what I mean? We peck on each other. Unless you're the last one on the pecking rung. And you don't got anybody to peck on. You ever been around chickens, how they peck? It's cruel. But it happens in the playground, in the workforce. Happens everywhere. It's horribly oppressive. But it's the reality of the world. And while I brought her to work, despite the fact that the hygiene wasn't the best, I really love her. And her kids. And you know, that's not something I chose to do. That's something that God has been working over time. Day by day, judgment by judgment, laughter by laughter, smile by smile. See, that's how God is working in our lives. In the ordinary, in the daily, when you don't even think He's working. God, it's like leaven, Jesus says. It's like leaven. If you understand leaven, you do what with leaven? You take it and you put it in the dough for the bread. And then it takes time for the leaven to rise, right? But if you've ever made bread, you put the leaven in the bread, and then you just go off and do your own thing. And all the while it's working through the entire loaf, just working, a force that just works all on its own until finally it gets to the point where it's ready to be baked and it's just perfect. Do you want to know why Jesus says, I'm the bread? I'm working through every aspect of your life, even when you're completely unaware with it, because you're trying to deal with the flat tire and the spilled milk and the bills that are over here and the person that just rubs you the wrong way over here and how you're never going to be able to get over here and how you made such a damn wreck of your life with every decision that you made that has been wrong. While you're all busy with all of that, I'm working to make everything beautiful. And I'm working. And just hold on, because you're going to see it. The childhood that looks like a damn train wreck, it's going to be beautiful when you get there. But just hold on. And this is the leaven working it. The nation of Israel that just fell apart, don't give up on it. I'm still working. The church that just can't seem to get her act together, which is every single one of them, let me keep working on it. The individual that just seems to be the biggest horse's patoot that you're married to. Give me some time. Just give me some time. Don't throw it away. Maybe there'll be a time when there will have to be adjustments, but in everything that you do, know that I'm working. Even when you have no idea what I'm doing. And see, this is what Jesus is teaching. This is where Jesus gets to the mountain and Moses can say, oh, this is where we were heading. I had no idea. I thought I wasted my life on these people. I thought I wasted my life. I led these people through the desert for 40 years. We finally get to the promised land, and you tell me I can't go in? I can just see it? This is where we're going. You were much bigger than the circumstances of your life, my friends. More valuable, too. Your destiny is sealed. And we're all on our way. May we continue to learn to walk in the full love of God. And in that process, be the people that God's made us to be. Perfect as He is perfect. Amen.